All right, let's call this meeting to order. It is the Advisory Police Committee for Albemarle County. It is Tuesday, December 14th, and it is 9 a.m. and good morning to everyone.
He's on. Mr. Richardson is on.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Cynthia. Okay, well then let me proceed with the housekeeping, which is the COVID protocol statement, and I will read that here momentarily. This meeting is being held pursuant to and compliance with the ordinance number 20-A14, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 pandemic. The members who are electronically present at this meeting are, and I will state your name, please say present. Let's see, Brian Williams.
Present.
Diantha.
Present.
John Spriggett. I believe you have a mute problem, John.
I think I've repaired that and present.
Okay. And is Olga with us?
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. And of course, myself. So we have a quorum, and the opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County website calendar, www.albemarle.org, and at www.publicinput.com//PDCAC. All righty. So now that the housekeeping is cleaned up, I'd like to take a moment and welcome our county executive, Jeff Richardson. Jeff, welcome. Thank you for attending today.
Richard, thank you for the opportunity and the invitation. I know this group is key to the success of the Albemarle County Police Department and the support that you give, the guidance. I can't begin to thank you enough. Chief Lance shares with regularity what this connection to our community means to him and to the success of the police department. And so I can't tell you how much I appreciate all your time and your energy. And it's a real honor to be with you today. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for those kind words. And of course, welcome Ann Malik. Ann Malik comes from us from Whitehall District. Welcome, Ann Malik.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I'm glad to have some FaceTime with Greg before he escapes.
All righty then. All right then. Do we have the minutes from October 12th? Do we have an approval of the minutes? Any member approve the minutes from last meeting?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, that's great. And then, of course, we have our section matters before the public with Chief Lance. Chief, do we have any comments from the public with respect to concerns, complaints, accolades, good guy stuff, bad guy stuff, any word?
I almost pulled a John. I was muted. Sorry, John, I had to. Appreciate you, Richard, asking me to come on and talk a little bit. I have not received any complaints since our last meeting. I have received quite a bit of email praise from our community. One of the most recent ones I received, which was really nice, an employee at the Miller School was involved in a traffic crash on their way home from work one evening. And they took the time to write a very lengthy email about the officer spending so much time with them, being courteous and thorough, and really left them with a really positive impression of the police department. So I was able to reply back to that citizen and thanking them for spending the time to write that email, because that means a lot, and I put it in the officer's file as well.
Well, that's great news. If a citizen in our community had a concern or a recommendation, what's the best way for them to communicate that to the police department?
Best way, if it's an emergency, obviously they can call the dispatch center, but if it's just a reporting something they want me to be aware of, they can send it to askthechief@albemarle.org. And that, and several of my staff members see it, so somebody's always got an eye on that email.
Well, if I'm a citizen and I send it over there, will you be the one that actually sees it as well as others?
Yes, I see each one of those.
Okay, that's great. So should the public have a concern, that's where you go. Or if you have something that you'd like to say in complimentary, again, that's the email to go to. All righty then. We have some new business today, and person that's going to be doing a great deal of that presentation is, of course, Major Sean Reeves, who is our deputy chief as well, in charge primarily of patrol and other items as well. But our topic today is our outreach to people of color, and what has the Albemarle County Police Department done in that regard and is doing, and some of its future plans to continue the connection. And what is the, talk a little bit about the neighborhood model as we go down, how's that going and how is it helping in relationship to this very, very critical relationship police need to have and maintain and have a continuing relationship with folks in our community of color. So with that, Sean, and during the presentation at some point, we'll need to break. Whoops. Okay, are we still there? I'm getting some video issues, but is everybody still with us?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So at some point, we'll when you get to a breaking point, then we'll go around the room and ask people to comment and ask questions, etc. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to you, Major, and let's hear what the police department has to say with respect to this.
Okay, thank you, Richard. First and foremost, can everybody actually see the presentation on their screens? All right. Thumbs up.
Yes.
Outstanding. So when Richard and the chief approached me about this topic, it's very timely and very important, especially this time of year when we think about ourselves and do a lot of reflecting. And I've titled this, making a difference in Albemarle County. How is it that our officers and our staff members are making a difference from all across our department? And wanted to begin with sharing what our police department's mission statement is. And the mission of the Albemarle County Police Department is to provide for the safety and security of all people while protecting individual rights and building trust in our diverse communities through quality service. I want to emphasize the building trust in our diverse communities, especially in this day and age, coming out of post Ferguson. And you see how building trust in our diverse communities actually ties into the overall organization, Albemarle County's organization, values of community, integrity, innovation, learning, and stewardship. So when putting this presentation together, it gave me an opportunity to reflect as to the why, and why is this imperative? Why is this important? And how are we making an impact? And my mental journey being on the front lines for some of the recent activities in our community brought me to a place where we need to acknowledge our past. We being law enforcement, government, our local community, is acknowledging our past and how we got to this point. And these images are from local incidents, and these are just a few instances that highlight the importance of understanding other races, other cultures in our community, and sharing and understanding different perspectives. And for example, the slave auction block where people were taken from their families and auctioned off on Market Street. Then here in Albemarle County, we have John Henry James, who is an African American who is accused of a crime over in the Valley, and was being transported to Charlottesville and pulled off a train and lynched by approximately 150 white people and killed and murdered. And that happened right near Farmington. And then we also have locally the demolition of Vinegar Hill, which was a historical, successful Black neighborhood in our community. And there are people that still live in our community that live and remember that. And so with that, you start to see pictures taking shape of why there's distrust between segments of our population and government. And then we fast forward to recent times, post Ferguson, Missouri, where awareness started to manifest and frustrations started to manifest about systemic issues, especially related to law enforcement. And then we have Freddie Gray, and then we have George Floyd in Minneapolis. All these incidents, time and time again, bring up the discussion of use of force with law enforcement, raising this national tension of use of force, as well as acknowledging the systemic racism that has prevailed in our society. So that, and then with the timing of the call for removal of Confederate statues all across the country, to include our community. And so what you have is this melting pot of different ideologies and different belief systems all coming together, all coming to a head. And as you can see from the pictures included, we had the 2017, we had the KKK rally, we had the Unite the Right rally that came into our community, where people from the outside dominated and set the narrative for our community. Charlottesville and Albemarle, were greatly impacted and by these incidents. And then the aftermath with the frustrations, calls for abolishing the police, and comparisons to the police to the KKK. All those things have happened in our community in recent history. And one of the more significant products to come out of these times was back in 2015, when President Obama started the Task Force on Policing the 21st Century, which can comprise of various community members, law enforcement organizations, police unions, activist group, all across the spectrum, to come together, sit at the table, and really map out what policing should look like in the future. And this is a model that the International Association of Chiefs of Police have adopted. Now, they put out a model that doesn't necessarily mean all jurisdictions follow this blueprint, but we here at Albemarle County have analyzed the blueprint. We've been doing this since 2015, and there's a lot of value and a lot of good things that came out of this report, some of which I'm going to share. So there are 6 pillars that were identified in the 21st century policing report. The first is building trust and legitimacy. That's embracing a guardian mindset in order to build trust with the public. And what that means is, for the longest time, our officers and just other officers across the country, some were taught about the warrior mindset of, we're out here as warriors, we're out here, but if you have the warrior mindset, that's how you're going to treat people. That's how you're going to treat people like it's adversarial, so to speak. Whereas if you alter your perspective, alter your mindset into a guardian mindset, that means you're taking on a public servant / protector role, which is very different than a warrior role. So changing the outlook, changing the mindset is huge. And we talk about community policing and crime reduction, engaging with neighborhoods to co-produce public safety. Our policy and oversight, collaborate with the community, develop policies and strategies to reduce crime, training and education, train our officers to address a growing variety of challenges. And this tangentially ties into the work we're doing towards building trust and legitimacy, what we're doing here about educating people on difference, bias-based policing, culture diversity, that type of training, crisis response training, CIT training, how to talk with just basic communication, how to engage and how to talk to people that are different than you. Then also using technology and social media, and then focusing also internally on officer wellness and safety. By promoting officer wellness and safety, keep in mind the unique nature of the police profession. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about that first pillar about building trust and legitimacy in our community and how the Albemarle County Police Department is actually doing that. But before I do that, Richard, I think this is a good opportunity to take a quick pause and see if there's any questions from the group.
All righty then. Brian Williams, do you have any questions for the deputy chief at this point?
I sure don't, but I surely appreciate how you've done an excellent job, a very thorough job of kind of grounding your presentation. Thank you so much, Major Reeves.
Welcome. Thank you.
Diantha, do you have any comments for the deputy chief at this point?
No comments. I really appreciate that our police department has maintained the geo policing. This has just really been wonderful for our community. I do have a quick question about, and maybe this, Sean, we're going to hear a little bit about the police department and the diversity within the staffing.
Yes.
Later in your presentation.
Yeah, it's actually coming up in the next couple slides.
Okay,
You read my
then
mind.
you have my question covered. Thank you.
Sounds like he's a mind reader. Okay, John, what do you have for the deputy chief here?
Just a quick question, and that is the type of training and positioning that you're talking about, is this also included in the state training at the academy?
Yeah, if I'm tracking your question correctly, John, yes, it aligns, but some of our training is actually above and beyond the minimum standard that the academy provides. DCGS sets a bare minimum standard of hours that we need to achieve culture diversity, and where we are expanding upon that, like with constitutional law training and some of our bias-based police training and CIT training. The chief can speak further to that if he has anything to add, since he sits on the academy. He's the head of the academy board. Chief, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, you hit it really well, Sean. I know DC is getting ready to implement some additional required training for all academies throughout the state. And to your point, we're already ahead of the curve in Albemarle County. We've been doing what they're going to implement already. So we're sitting really well. And I think it's a good thing. It's going to be statewide. It's just not going to be individual departments, but you hit it well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Ann, do you have anything for the deputy chief at this point?
I'll hold off until the end. They'll probably get answered along the way. Thank you.
Okay, and how about you, Mr. Richardson?
No, sir, I'm good to go. Thank you very much.
Okay, then, Sean, you're good to go and ready for the next part of your presentation.
All right, very good.
I do have one thing before you continue on. I
Yeah.
just want to point out that our officers in the community are not just folks that do their regular job and public policing and items associated with that. They're actually our ambassadors to our community in many ways. So this kind of discussion is absolutely critical, because in a number of occasions, folks coming to our community first, sometimes because of events we have, etc., may come across a police officer, and that might become their first impression of our community. So our public policing role is critical to the nature and fabric of our community. So with that, I'll let you continue on with your presentation.
It is, Richard. Thank you for that, and thank you for that transition. It was well said, and there's a lot of truth to that. When we talk about these protests, in many of these situations, these frustrations are out there. Law enforcement assumes the identity of government, where people's frustration, aggravation, a lot of times when they're interacting with law enforcement, that's the only facet of government most people interact with on a daily basis. So it's important, how we represent ourselves. Are we a legitimate organization, and what does our reputation say about us? So again, that speaks to building trust and legitimacy in our community. And the mind reader that I am, to answer Diantha's question, So this is the census data from 2019. And here's the racial makeup of Albemarle County. Approximately 82% white, 10% Black or African American, 5.5% Asian, 0.1% Pacific Islander, and a little over 2.5% of two or more races, with nearly 6% of our population identifying as Hispanic or Latino. And then I also added in there too, because it's come up in conversations with our older population of 65 or older, of 19.3% in Albemarle County. So how does that stack up within the Albemarle County Police Department? So because of the hard work of the County Executive's Office, as well as the Board of Supervisors for their tremendous support this past year, effective this month, we were able to increase our staffing level by 4 officers plus 4 overhires, bringing our total target staffing level, that's what TSL stands for, target staffing level. This is sworn, not civilian, to 161 officers, which is outstanding. It's going to do a lot of work. So thank you all. Yes, round of applause. Thank you all for your support. And right now, our current staffing levels are at 143, with the diversity composition of our officers making up 20% of sworn, with 17 female officers, 7 Black or African American officers, and 4 Hispanic or Latino officers. And I think there's an update to even when I received this information for our current open positions, because I know the chief and Greg and our training staff has been working diligently doing backgrounds this entire week. Chief, did you want to be able to provide that updated number?
Yeah, thank you, Sean. I'm doing a lot of interviews this week with potential people to put in the academy, and our training, professional development, recruiting folks have been doing, an incredible job giving us good people. I always tell folks, and you guys have heard me preach this before, we'll go short staff before we settle or lower our standards of hiring folks, and we're not going to do that as long as I'm the chief. And we are getting some outstanding young people. And the thing that gets me more excited is it's local people that have something to give back to the community. They have ties here. So we're having a good group of people that are coming in, not as many as we normally do, but we're having a good group. So if I hire everybody that I'm going to hire that's in the pipeline right now, we'll be down 10 positions. So instead of 18, we'll be down 10. I'll take us to 151. So that's where we'll be sitting at as a more real-time number for the group. Thank you, Sean.
And comparably to our fellow agencies, this isn't, these staffing vacancies aren't exclusive. It's not even exclusive to our industry. It's a national phenomenon dealing with employment. But to say that we would just be potentially 10 down, and that's with the increased staffing level, is quite the achievement. And when we talk about hiring diversity, hiring different applicants from different backgrounds, with the support of the board, the county executive's office, we're able to have that public safety pay scale and attract certified and new people to make us competitive in the job market for people to want to come and work here. But speaking to that piece about what our reputation says, I had an opportunity to speak with one of our officers that came from one of our neighboring jurisdictions, who identifies as a minority, and got to have a conversation because we're starting to attract more minorities, candidates from other jurisdictions. And a lot of it has to do with the reputation that the county has undergone, especially the police department, over the last 15 years, and making it a place where people want to come and work that don't all look the same. So again, we're doing something right, and that should also be recognized. Supervisor Malik, you had a question?
Just really a comment. This slide is such good news to me, because I think it was probably 2008 or 9. We were at 118. And the chief then kept asking for 4, and he wouldn't get any, or next year he'd ask for 4 and get 1. And so I am just so thrilled we've made the kinds of progress that we've made. And also your comment just now about the different culture from 15 years ago is so important from you, but also Greg's been through all this from the very beginning. He knows the then and now, and how much better it is not to be carrying the weight of people who shouldn't be there. So I thank you all for the work you've done to improve the whole staffing climate.
Thank you for that. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about, just so for those in attendance as well that understand what Supervisor McKeel was saying earlier on about geo policing. The technical term is actually geographic-based policing. We use geo policing, and it's a model of policing that we went to in 2012. And this policing is essentially a component of community-oriented and problem-oriented policing, where it involves assigning officers and supervisors to specific geographic areas as a framework for base policing. This was a fundamental shift in the way that the Albemarle County Police Department delivered police services to the community. The shift in our philosophy moved our department away from one of being based on time and persons to one of place. Whereas geo-based policing also places an emphasis on enhancing community relationships and problem solving by assigning officers into the same sectors. They get to know their community, they get to get out of their vehicles, engage with business owners. Not too much of that during COVID, but pre-pandemic, and now we're starting to ease back into it, especially with these newer officers, encouraging folks to really engage and get to know their communities. And it's because of that why we are very successful when it comes to community engagement, which will make sense here in a few more slides. So the following map illustrates the county's reorganization for law enforcement services. The county is divided into two districts, the Blue Ridge and the Jefferson district. That's northeast and southwest, with the Jefferson district occupying the northeast side of the county. You'll see the yellow and orange and the pink and purple. That's all the Jefferson district. And then the remainder of the map to the south and the west is the Blue Ridge district. And then you'll see the S, 1 through 8. The S stands for sectors. We're divided into sectors, and then each one of those sectors is subdivided into beats. Now, right now we have the staffing to allow for an officer in every sector. And we have 12 police sergeants in uniform patrol that are assigned to a particular squad, but also a permanent district. And then we have 2 patrol captains and now 2 district commanders that assist them, or deputy district commanders to assist them, that oversee each district. That would be Captain Terry Walls on the Jefferson district and Captain Miller Stoddard of the Blue Ridge district. And again, this is just an overview of how our county is divided within the police department, and how the police department responds to calls and the area of responsibilities that our officers are assigned to. All right, Richard, here's another opportunity for questions before we go into the actual meat and potatoes of the presentation when it comes to exactly what relationships and community engagement opportunities that we are conducting.
Okay, very good there. Mr. Williams, do you have a question for the Deputy Chief?
No question at this time. Thank you.
And Diantha?
No questions right now. Sean, thank you. This is a great presentation. You're getting to my questions, so it's all good. Thank you.
Again, he's a mind reader. All right, John, do you have anything for the Deputy Chief?
Not at this time. Thank you.
All righty. And Ann, anything at this point?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, then, Mr. Richardson, any questions for the Deputy Chief at this point?
No, sir, not at this time.
All right, Sean, well, you go ahead with your presentation. Sounds good so far to me.
Thank you. The first, this is an annual event. The first event I want to talk a little bit about is Putt-Putt with the Police. And Putt-Putt with the Police is held on the north side of the county within the urban ring. And it's situated right outside of 2 complexes with, that's the Row Hill and Mallside apartment complex. So every year that we host Putt Putt with the Police, it's sponsored by the Albemarle County Police Foundation. And it's a free event to all community members, but we get a lot of foot traffic, and it's an opportunity for folks to come up and engage with our officers. And you're gonna hear that term a lot, is engaging with our officers. Our officers come, they're in uniform, they're playing putt putt with kids and family members, they're asking questions. And it's a way for the community to interact with our law enforcement professionals in a way that they typically don't. And again, this is an annual event that occurs every summer. And we could not do this without the Police Foundation support. This event actually draws well over 1,000 attendees every single year. Another annual event that we host to engage our community is National Night Out. It's held across thousands of communities in the United States on the first Tuesday in August, and it's an annual community building event that promotes police and community partnerships and provides community members, again, time for the opportunity to come out, talk to officers. This is a little bit different, where we bring out some of our equipment and we dispel some of the myths that are out there. I know that these past several years, there's been a lot of conversation about demilitarizing law enforcement and being able to explain to community members why it is that we need the tools to do the job that we need to do, and actually take the opportunity to educate people. Another one that's near and dear to my heart is the Virginia Rural Summer Camp, and this is something that before he was chief, the Major Lance also was a part of through the Grace Committee that was started back in 2015. It was a first of its kind for this local area. And what the summer camp was, it was designed for at-risk youth through partnerships with the Albemarle County Public Schools, specifically our school resource officers in Region 10, where we and also our Charlottesville City Police Department partners, where we identified kids that were middle school age that were considered at risk for joining gangs. We were not looking for validated gang members. We were looking at people that were at risk for joining gangs, and there was certain criteria that were identified and met, and through parental consent as well. So we had 20 kids, 10 from the county, 10 from the city, participate in this summer camp. And it was a week-long camp that was sponsored by the Attorney General's office and funded by the Attorney General's office, and also community partners that donated food and meals to several of these kids. And it was a week packed full of activities. There's an education component every day where we talked about the dangers of gangs. We would talk about drug abuse. We would talk about substance abuse. We would talk about health. Then we'd take them out every single day to do some sort of community event. We take them to baseball. We took them to UVA. We partnered with University of Virginia, where the female campers got to spend the day with female basketball players, and the males got to spend the day with male football players, and compared notes. And there was an internal battle. It was kind of funny. I just tell the story that when the female campers came back from meeting with the basketball players, they had all the swag. They had UVA basketball shirts and basketballs and things like that. And then the boy campers' jaws just dropped because the girls came back with all these neat little toys. But it was a great experience. One of the other things that we've done is, we'll take them to Monticello, and they'll get a tour, a behind-the-scenes tour of Monticello, which is an educational experience for a lot of these youngsters. And then you'll see in the lower right-hand corner, we partnered with one of our local businesses that taught kids how to build computers. And at the end of the camp, not only were they able to build computers, but they got to take the computers home with them at no cost. So it was a phenomenal camp. And it's something that we've had to table the past 2 years because of COVID, but something that when we talk about community engagement, engaging with our communities and interacting with kids at a younger age, especially those that are identified as at risk, it is a great opportunity for some of these kids to see law enforcement in different capacity. And we have these honest conversations with them, and several of the kids distrusted law enforcement coming into camp. And their only engagement with police is seeing police officers take their parents away or their loved ones away. And that's unfortunate. These kids grew up in fear of law enforcement. and to be able to change the perspectives and change those outlooks and humanize police in such a way made it all worthwhile. One other event that we've done this past year is there was a recent community event down at Simpson Park. And this was a collaborative effort involving members of the police department, Albemarle County Parks and Recreation, and the Yancey Community Center. This event was free, and attendees were provided free meals and ice cream and popcorn. This event sought to bring members of the Southern Albemarle together and highlighted resources available to the community members. There are also opportunities for children to get involved in arts and craft, play kickball with some of our officers, basketball with some of our officers, and engage in these contests. And it was estimated that a little over 300 community members turned out for this event. Then we're going to talk about our tremendous work in the Southwood community. This has been an ongoing effort, especially ever since Habitat for Humanity came in to really revitalize that part of Albemarle County. Our officers every year pass out book bags, participate in the back to school campaign. We attend community town halls as well as doing miscellaneous community events. We're constantly getting invited to either engage in some sort of sports activity, the Boys and Girls Club to come over there and talk and engage with the kids. One of the photos is from a Halloween event that we were able to conduct out and pass out candy bags donated by the Police Foundation to engage kids in Southwood. Those of you unaware, the Southwood community is a predominantly Hispanic community and one of the larger Hispanic communities in this entire area. But on the topic of our local Latin community, over the past 5 to 6 years, the Albemarle County Police Department has made tremendous strides in establishing and building relationships with our local Latin communities. This has been accomplished through our partnerships with Cimbreras and with the Church of the Incarnation, which is the largest Latin church in Albemarle County. It's located up on the north side. We also participate in the U visa programs where prior to Chief Lance assuming the role of Chief of Police, we've maybe signed off on 1 U visa the past 5 years, and prior to him, and then post him, we've gone through well over 100 U visas. And U visas are entitled to people who have been who don't have status in our country, but have been the victim of a violent crime. Examples are homicides victims and survivors of, let's say, a family of a homicide victim. They're eligible for U visas, as well as people that have been survivors of other predicate crimes, include robberies, rapes, other violent acts. People are eligible to apply for a U visa. It's not an automatic guarantee that they're going to be awarded a visa, but still, it's a way that we build trust with our community and understand this program, and actually use it to interact with several lawyers and attorneys in our community to give people the help that they need. The Charlottesville Community ID Card Program is another big initiative. That was an opportunity for 2 years. Every Saturday, I was able to go to the various churches within our community when they host a community ID card program, and interact with our Latin community and explain to folks that we are not immigration and that people should not live in fear of our community. I share some of my backstory coming up, my family's backstory coming up in Texas, to really show and humanize the police department and explain what it is that our police department stands for, but also give people an opportunity to contact information if they feel that they've been subjected to any type of racial profiling or any type of injustice, to be able to contact me directly or internal affairs to help build that trust. And then another event is the annual Seaville Sabrosa event that's held at the Hicks Park. And that's a large celebration festival that's held by our Latin community, and we're honored to be invited every year to come on stage and speak and show our appreciation for our community. And then another picture you'll see up in the right hand corner is at the Church of the Incarnation. Our officers will pass out bicycle helmets and teach safety after mass. And they'll bring the trailer out and interact with little ones and provide bicycle helmets at no cost. And they can watch a little safety cartoon video on the back of the trailer. And the bottom right-hand corner, that was actually taken this past Saturday. Every year during December, there is a pilgrimage called Our Lady of Guadalupe pilgrimage from Southwood to the Church of Incarnation. And it happens overnight. People gather about 1 a.m. and it usually averages between 200 and 300 people. And there's a walk that's been going on for 10 years from Southwood to the Church of the Incarnation. I was only informed of it 4 years ago during a community event. I happened to talk to one of the local Latin community leaders from Cimbreras, and she was telling me about this pilgrimage. And while I was hearing about it, I was surprised that there wasn't any type of a police escort. And in fact, she said that in the past, other jurisdictions have stopped them and asked them a bunch of questions, thinking it was a protest and not a pilgrimage, and want to make sure that they had permits. So the Albemarle County Police Department would work with VDOT, we work with Charlottesville City Police Department, and we now every single year from 1 a.m. to about 5 6 a.m. we will provide a police escort for these 300 plus folks to make their pilgrimage from Southwood to the church and get there safely by blocking off intersections and make sure that the folks can get there safely. We'll drive a trail van. So if people get tired or fatigued, it happens, rain or shine. While I was driving the van this past week, it started raining, and that didn't deter people. Folks from all ages and all across from either other counties will come participate in this pilgrimage. And then next week at the Church of the Incarnations, we pass out posadas, which are little gift bags to children. We've been doing that every year for the past 45 years. And these are events that we are being invited to. We're not inserting ourselves, with the exception of that conversation about getting there safely. But that opened the door for other conversation, other opportunities when we start building trust within our communities. When we start getting invitations, that to me is a clear indicator that we're doing something right, where we are being welcomed into communities in our diverse population. And then briefly talk about our senior community. We do safety talks. We engage. That includes frauds and scams. We work with triads as well as our local Veterans of Foreign Wars halls, and we'll go do talks, we'll get invitations, and engage with our senior community. And then finally, I'm gonna briefly talk on some of these, so that way we leave enough time, Richard, at the end for any questions and answers, any feedback. So other community outreach initiatives that we do is the Esmont Food Bank. Our officers and one of our commanders has put that on this past year, has engaged with the Esmont community and having our officers help out with the food bank. The Zion Hill Baptist Church food distribution as well. We get invited to help pass out meals during the Thanksgiving time frame. This past year, we've been invited, the commanders have been invited to speak at various NAACP meetings to talk about policing, use of force, and what our philosophies are. Just 2 weeks ago, we participated in Toy Lift and also Shop with a Cop, where the foundation provides us some funds where we can take underprivileged kids and take them shopping, and that where they might not have had the opportunity to buy gifts, and they get to spend time with the police officer shopping for toys for loved ones. We also participate in Coffee with a Cop and host a annual Census Police Academy. Was tabled during the pandemic, but we're going to spin that up again. The chief is involved in the Pastors Council, as well as he has this, Citizens Advisory Committee. And then each of the commanders, the district commanders, have their own Citizens Advisory team. So that way we can speak to the community about various law enforcement topics and receive feedback from citizens and business owners in the 2 districts. Something I spoke to earlier on this year that's near and dear to my heart is mental health reform and health and human services. Again, with the help of the county executive office, that's something that they are engaged in as well. And this is a deeper conversation for another meeting later on this year, and how we're changing the way Albemarle County changes its service to dealing with people with mental health, as well as taking the opportunity to try to decouple law enforcement from mental health calls for service, having a role but not a primary role, and changing that service through partnerships with Albemarle County Fire Rescue, and more importantly with the new DSS Director, Kaki Domak. So more to come on that. And then something that we've done in the past with the schools and partnering with them is Help Save the Next Girl /AWARE program, where we talk about the dangers and pitfalls, especially with young men and women that are getting ready to turn 18 and go out to the world, the dangers that are out there. This is Trina Murphy speaking about Alexis Murphy's case and provide the backstory. We have different speakers come up, talk about domestic abuse and stalking and cyber awareness and cybersecurity in this day and age where technology is such a integral part of young people's lives, and having those conversations with them. And then something that's not in here, that because of all the recent threats and bomb threats that are coming in, it's my understanding that either this week or next, there's going to be a talk with the schools where our police departments can go out and talk to the students about the dangers and risks associated, the repercussions associated with calling in active shooter calls or making threats towards schools. So that's something else that we're involved in. The police department's involved with. Those of you familiar with the Leadership Charlottesville program, I'll teach a block of instruction on the police block and bring people in. We've expanded that to take people down to the range and talk about mental health, as well as put folks through the use of force simulator to show just the dynamics associated with the difficulties associated with decision making in law enforcement. And then one of the newest additions is the International Rescue Committee, where we are part of that and engage with the community, get a better understanding of our Charlottesville refugee situation post-Afghanistan, and have that open dialogue so we can get a better understanding of the refugees coming in our community. And lastly, I would like to thank all the women and men of the Albemarle County Police Department who strive every day to make our community a safer and better place. This presentation is all about the work that our officers do on a daily basis, these connections. I told you earlier on that through geo-based policing and through these community connections and through these invitations, this wouldn't be possible without that network that our officers are establishing at the ground level. Our commanders participate in some of these events, but these events are truly driven by the backbone of our organization. That's the sergeants, the first sergeants, and the officers who take the leadership in that. And it's because of their work that we're able to have this presentation, have this conversation today. So with that, Richard, that concludes the presentation.
Absolutely outstanding job. And we're all grateful, but I'm sure we all have some questions. So let's start off with Brian Williams. Do you have some questions or suggestions for the Deputy Chief?
Outstanding presentation, and it just reaffirms to me how fortunate I am to reside within a county, within a community who has been intentional in their efforts in trying to acknowledge the past, its impact on the present, but utilize that to really kind of co-create a much brighter future. Having said that, one of the things I love is the origin story aspect of your presentation, how the history really impacts these present day relationships. But also, I was hoping that maybe this presentation could be posted on the website or something where people would have access to it. I think you guys have been extremely responsive and accountable to a diverse public that you serve. And I would just like to make sure that people have access to this information to alert them that you're doing the best you can with the constraints that you're operating within. And I think you're doing an outstanding job. So I commend you once again for this presentation. I commend the leadership of not only the county government, but the county police department for kind of acknowledging the past and kind of not limiting that past to our present and our future.
Thank you, sir. That means a lot. I appreciate that feedback. And then after this is concluded, I think we can share this link, because I think without context, just the PowerPoint alone, I'd like to share this link and maybe post it on our website so we could talk with Dana and Cindy about having that done. So thank you, sir.
I have one other comment, and I'll probably try to get in contact with you, Chief Lance, and Deputy Chief Reeves. I know 988 number is scheduled to be coming online July 2022. I am in the process with the class I'm teaching in the spring, trying to put something together to kind of better inform the broader public about that 988 number. And I'd love to kind of bounce some ideas off of you all, and maybe we can kind of partner in this process with some of the other police departments within Albemarle County, UPD and CPD.
Yeah, absolutely. That ties into the work that we talked about with at the end of the presentation. So absolutely.
Thank you very much for that there, Mr. Williams. Diantha, do you have some questions for the Deputy Chief or
Just
suggestions?
a quick clarification, because I think Brian made a great point, but some folks that might be listening to us don't know what the 988 number is. So just a quick clarification from someone, it has to do with mental health, and it would probably be good to clarify that.
Yeah, that's the mental health crisis hotline. And that's part of the overall market alert rollout, and that's moving across the Commonwealth. There's different components to that, and again, that's a broader conversation that I can have with Brian about what we're doing in Albemarle County specifically, and how that ties into the mental health reform and the role 988 plays in diverting people that are in crisis from law enforcement or from the 911 system. Did that, Brian?
That's right. Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone who might be listening understood that 988 number that's going to come online is a mental health number that you can use in a mental health crisis as opposed to a 911, right? I did not realize it was rolling out in this summer, so that's great to hear. That's really good. Just a couple of comments. I really would love, Sean, thank you so much. And specifically honing in again on the mental health reform that we're going to be doing around our police department and our community. I'm assuming we'll get an agenda item or a presentation after the first of the year sometime on that work of your department in mental health.
Yes.
That's great. Okay, that's excellent. The link, you talked about the link to this presentation. If some of us could have a link that, as you said, Sean, is more comprehensive and not just a PowerPoint. For example, I was at the NAACP last night, their meeting. I would love to be able to share a link with that group. And we all have groups, that we could share this information with. That would be great. And I want to just, while I have a chance, I want to thank you for the arrests you all made with the folks that were threatening our high schools. That was a wonderful investigational work and arrest, and thank you. The distress that was causing in our community and our schools was just terrible. So thank you for that arrest. And that leads me to one quick question. I saw all those lists of groups that you all are working with. I don't see how you have time to do anything, to be honest with you. You were doing so much. It's just wonderful how we're connecting to all of these groups. And I appreciate you still have time to take my phone calls. But I was just curious, what is the connection right now between the police department and the school safety officers, the new positions that have rolled out? I'm hoping that we're creating a really good rapport and communication pipeline with those officers, since they're not under the control of the police department. Could you give me just a couple of quick bites about that, sound bites?
Yeah, so we do have a conversation with Dr. Turner when it comes to the any type of school issues. That there have been some bumps in the road that we need to work out just because it's such a new process. But when it comes to communication, we do have open dialogue with Dr. Haas and Dr. Turner when it comes to our relationship with the schools. They will still contact us for serious criminal matters, like the threats that we received. And yeah, there's some growing pains, but we're working through it as far as communicating and having those open lines of conversation. And Dr. Haas and Dr. Turner have been really receptive to our feedback.
Well, that's good to hear, because that's going to be critical in that program being successful, is to have open communications and working with you all, right? And we want that to happen. So thank you. And with that, I really appreciate this presentation. Thanks.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
All right, we're running a little short on time. John, do you have anything for the Deputy Chief?
Just my compliments. Excellent presentation. The only thing I might question is, what's your next step?
As far as moving in the future,
Yeah.
so right now, and that's a great question. This community engagement is ever evolving. And right now you see some of those programs, we've established relationships, and I'm of the believer of you need to establish a relationship before you can build relationships. So it's continue to build those relationships in the future, especially with marginalized communities, and to continue to build those trusts and expand. And it is a partnership. It is a union between the community and the police department. So when we get these invitations, accepting those invitations and taking advantage of those opportunities to continue to grow and evolve. And just like the example I gave about doing the police escort, law enforcement escort, something as simple as that evolved from a previous encounter that had another engagement. So our officers are always looking and innovating and looking for ways to expand and engage with our communities. And what that ends up, the end result to that, to Diantha's point, is a long list of things, and then I'm sure there's dozens that I didn't even list on there. And those are just the ones that were coming to the top of my head, coming to the top of the commander's heads. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great work, and keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. And Malik, do you have any questions for the Deputy Chief?
No questions. I think the presentation was great. And if it's available via link, I hope it would have the voiceover with it, so that we do have the narrative that goes along with those static slides. We certainly, over the years, have benefited in the community from visits to our community meetings. Tavis, as a young officer, who used to come and visit with the Earl group when he was on shift. And I know that a whole chain of different young officers have visited the Carissa Community Association at their regular meetings. And I think those are really important ways to also establish those linkages for people when you're invited to come. And I do hope that someday the Explorer program can be reactivated, because I know a lot of young kids who did benefit from that 20 years ago when it was going so well. So thank you for having me. I sent to Richard, and I know that all the officers in the meeting have had a copy of the concern from our Earlysville neighbor about what is perceived to be a statutory prevention of you all enforcing the rules about drag racing and noisy vehicles and things like that. So I would like to learn more about that, if someone can offline provide some extra detail, because we need to know if our legislators can help us, and what your guidance would be to what to ask our legislators for is to remove the thing that was dropped in last year that's preventing you all from getting after these people who are just wrecking the quality of life in neighborhoods by driving around vehicles all night long without any sound control anymore. So I know we're out of time today, but I would look forward to learning more about what we can do to support you on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, very good. And let's see, Mr. Richardson, do you have any comments or questions for Deputy Chief, as we are running out of time?
Richard, he entered in the chat that he had to leave for an economic development meeting. So
Okay, very good. Then I guess we did talk quite a bit about the staffing, so I guess we are out of time. And so I will make a motion. And I should tell you that I'm going to touch base with you later on today about the email that you sent me. So do we have a motion to, first of all, thank you so much, Deputy Chief. And I did have one question, which is, where is the location of the Church of the Incarnation?
Church of the Incarnation is located on the north side of the county, behind Fashion Square Mall, off of Hillsdale Drive.
Very good.
Mhm.
And do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, very good. Thank you for everybody for participating today. And once again, a fabulous job, Deputy Chief.
Thank you. Everybody have a safe and happy holidays.
You too.
Likewise.
Same to you all. Be safe and
Thank
have a
you.
lovely
Be safe.